Alright, it's here for Yankopim or the Minister of Communications and Digitalization. Mrs. Ekuful. Ekuful also Nakachia. And same be no double to your FIA Ablakwa. The Minister for North Tongo and Minister for North Tongo Ablakwa. The same be no to get FA Nehono. Now, the Minister for Communication and Digitalization. Mrs. Ekuful also or the same kakana babe together efa Ablakwa okase now she has exposed Ablakwa's fallacy contract and Minister of Communications and Digitalizations Mrs. Ekuful also has exposed Ablakwa's fallacy. Now Minister for Communications and Digitalizations Ursula Ekuful has shut down a fallacy of a 48 million contract allegedly signed by her for the execution of a rural telephone project by Ascend Digital Solutions. The Minister of Communication and Digitalization, Mrs. Ekuful also, she has shut down some fallacy of a Kapudo $48 million contract. It has been allegedly signed by her for the execution of a rural telephone project by Ascend Digital Solutions. Now, National Democratic Congress NDC MP for North Tongo, Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, alleged the minister had awarded a juicy contract, and she said the minister has awarded a juicy contract clocked in a secret to supposed Nigerian cabal. In a social media post, Ablakwa claimed that the commercial agreement for the US $155 million rural telephone project, which Parliament approved on March 31st, 2020, could only be executed by Huawei Technologies Company Limited and the China Technology Technical Report and Export Corporation. A year in a social media post, Ablakwa or he claimed that the commercial agreement for the $155 million rural telephone project which Parliament approved on March 31st, 2020, could only be executed by a Huawei Technologies Company Limited and also the China National Technical Import and Export Corporation, CNTIC. And if any other entity outside these two companies take over the project, it would amount to a variation of what has been approved by Parliament and therefore a prime parliamentary amendment to the original commercial agreement, the MP added. The MP for the North Tongo, Ablakwa or the Tuga, or see if any other entities outside these two companies take over the project, it would amount to a variation. Like I said, amounted to a variation of what has been approved by Parliament and therefore a prior parliamentary amendment. A parliamentary amendment changes via to the original commercial agreement in course, the MP or something editor. Now, but the minister has shot back by accusing the opposition lawmaker of relying on a false conjecturing contract, daring him to produce the supposed $48 million contract between the government and Ascend Digital without approval of the Public Procurement Authority, the PPA, but the minister, Ablakwa, has shot back by accusing the opposition lawmaker of relying on a false conjecturing contract, daring him, Mrs. Ekuful was daring him to produce the supposed $48 million contract between the government and Ascend Digital Solutions without approval of the Public Procurement Authority (PPA). Now, I'm still waiting for the $48 million contract I'm supposed to have signed with PPA approval. That hasn't been produced yet. Ablakwa is now jumping from pillar to post. Now, Ablakwa is now jumping from pillar to post. Like I say, free back where the comments are. The balance also any I won't dignified ignorant rants. It's a response. I have work to do. Ursula, the Minister for Communications and Digitalization, she wrote in a response to the accusations. Ablakwa, please produce the contract you claim I signed without PPA approval. Mrs. Ekuful also Ablakwa producing the contract you claim I signed without PPA approval. Next is Ablakwa on claim and I say on chain and I say on evidence in bear or see what sign contract with PPA only in Yasubian or see Ablakwa on family. This is the only RTP contract I have signed approved by Parliament, the ministry, the minister who is also MP for Ablakwa West added. Now, since the allegations, the ruling New Patriotic Party has joined the fray, explaining that the government, through a financing arrangement with China, gave a contract to Huawei and China National Technical Import and Export Corporation. I also seen the allegations, the ruling MPP has joined the fray, explaining that the government, through a financing arrangement with China, gave a contract to the Huawei and China National Technical Import and Export Corporation, you can check on the CNTIC. Now, MPP Deputy Director of IT, Ablakwa, said the contract followed all due processes, including cabinet approval, parliamentary approval, and also PPA approval. MPP Deputy Director of IT, Ablakwa, saying the contract followed all due processes, including a cabinet approval, to parliamentary approval, and also PPA approval. Deputy Director of IT, so or the two. Now, yes, there are two parts of the contract, one being executed by Huawei and other being executed by CNTIC. Or see, now there are two contracts. Or see, one being executed by Huawei and the other being executed by CNTIC, China National Technical Import and Export Corporation. CNTIC has engaged Ascend Digital Solution as their local partner in executing their part of the work. This is a business-to-business contract, hence there was no need for PPA approval. Or see, the CNTIC, they have engaged Ascend Digital Solution as their local partner in executing their part of the work. I say this is a business-to-business contract. I see business with a business-to-business contract. There's no need for a PPA approval. He explained further. Ablakwa was explaining further to. According to him, MP Ablakwa wrote to PPA requesting for details of the authority's approval of a contract between the Ministry of Communication and Ascend for a rural telephone project in 2020. Note that Ablakwa was specific. PPA said they don't have anything on a contract between the Ministry of Communications and Ascend, and rightfully so, because the government has not engaged Ascend. He noted. Ablakwa said it together. Mr. Forson said Ablakwa, in his usual style, came to Facebook and accused the Ministry of Communication of breaching procurement laws. He didn't bother to reach out the ministry of his colleague MP, the Minister for Better and Further Particulars. You were forcing or started to get Ablakwa, in his usual style, I came to Facebook and accused the Ministry of Communications and reaching Mrs. Ekuful. He didn't bother to reach out the ministry of his colleague MP, the Ministry for Better and Further Particulars. As usual, he was more interested in setting up the minister and government for attacks. It has emerged that indeed the only contract the government signed was the Huawei and CNTIC, and all procurement procedures were followed, he added. According to him, government has not rewarded any contract to Ascend Digital Solutions as falsely put out by Ablakwa. Consequently, Samuel Okugetu Ablakwa public outburst was highly unnecessary and untrue, because Ascend didn't have any contract with the government. Or see, the Ascend didn't have any contract with the government. A simple request to the ministry would have averted this grand embarrassment, he intimated. Or see, a simple request to the ministry would have averted this grand embarrassment. He made public copies of the PPA approval as well as the parliamentary approval for the contract between the Ministry of Communications and Digitalizations and Huawei, as well as CNTIC. Ay3huhuuhu, when it's kakra abetoma pronso ma pensem aka ho asemache the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization Mrs. Ekuful ɔne sɛ wɔabɛto dwa ɔse ɛyɛ ɔde ato dwa ɛyɛ the minister no Mrs. Ekuful Owusu no expose Ablakwa's fallacy contract no. Minister of Digitalization and Communication Mrs. Ekuful Owusu ɛna wɔayɛ den expose Ablakwa fallacy contract no. Etiefo mdamu namase aha ɛyɛ nimdeɛ news.